Belphegor is a French cartoon from 2000 that doesn't have an official English translation and was made for kids. As an adult who doesn't speak a lick of French, I'm very much not the target audience for this show, but this hasn't stopped me from becoming utterly obsessed with this freaky little French cartoon anyway, to the point where I've seen the series several times over. Naturally, this means I've developed opinions about the show, and some episodes I prefer more than others. Opinions that have changed with the release of fans' translations as well. Otter Osipov is a YouTuber who has been slowly releasing unofficial translations, and he's up to episode 9 so far. I'll link his channel in the description. This is, of course, just my opinion, and I'm sure my opinions will change when more translations come out, but for now, here's every episode of Belphegor ranked. Spoilers for this French cartoon that was made before I was born, but if you want to watch the show on your own beforehand, I'll link the episode playlist below. Feel free to watch this video anyway, just know I'm going to spoil everything, so you've been warned. 26th place, episode 4, Le Secret du Maître Flamel. So, unfortunately, when you watch old cartoons, there's almost always going to be some very distasteful characters. Let's just say this is a cartoon from 2000s, and the episode theme is about gold and bankers, and the less said about this one, the better. Moving on. In 25th place, we have episode 5, Le Capitaine de Neoco, which is a lot harder to pronounce than I thought it would be. Anyway, back to episodes I can actually talk about. There's nothing offensive or wrong with this episode, it's just a little uncomfortable to watch at times. Which is a shame because there's a lot interesting going on, but all of them just kind of fall flat. It's pretty much the only episode based on Raphael, who is Commissioner Menard's grandson, and the only person in the show who knows how to use Google correctly. And I like him a lot, so it's kind of a shame. Though, with how this episode was written, maybe it was a good thing they only made one revolve around him. The plot is relatively interesting on its own. An immortal Egyptian Malmi is trying to collect the mummified bodies of his friends while Belphegor is trying to track him down to figure out the secret of immortality. The immortal is such an insane character. We don't even see much of Belphegor this episode, and he actually seems kind of reasonable in comparison, which can be a double-edged sword. It was really fun to watch a character so insane that even Belphegor looks reasonable, but also, it's his name in the title for a reason. I want to see him do deranged shit. And there's also the uncomfortable part. The immortal mummy works with Raphael to get his friends back, which are dead mummies. Like, these are dead bodies. All of them are dead. And this culminates into the immortal luring Raphael to swim in the catacombs to show him his secret of immortality, which involves both of them stripping down to their underwear alone in the catacombs, and Raphael is 12. Yeah, it's extremely uncomfortable to watch, so I'm just going to chalk that up to cultural differences in a different time and move on. Okay, I know those last two weren't great, but now we're moving on to episodes that really have nothing wrong with them. There's going to be a huge jump in ratings from here on out, so let's get right to it. In 24th place, we have episode 12, Tenebra Lux. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this episode, it just didn't really appeal much to me. The plot is there's this sort of really elaborate kidnapping plan Belphegor is doing where he kidnaps several people using this vanishing magic act where they just disappear in front of in thin air in front of a bunch of witnesses. It's kind of cool, but honestly a little impersonal. Belphegor works best when he's being a one-on-one menace, in my opinion. And also, the translation isn't out yet, so we really have no idea why he's doing any of this. Even for most other untranslated episodes, and before most of the translations came out, the viewer can usually take a good guess at what his motivations are and what the plot is and what's going on. And even if a few details are wrong, it's still more enjoyable that way. This episode just doesn't give us a lot to work with. I'm sure it's going to make a lot more sense and be a lot more enjoyable once the translations do come out, but unfortunately for now it's in 24th place. In 23rd place, we have episode 3, Le Fantôme du Templar. I'm sure you've noticed a lot of earlier episodes are at the beginning of this list. There's nothing wrong with them, well, most of them, but at the midpoint of the series, if not a little earlier, there's this huge shift where Belphegor becomes more obsessed and in turn more unhinged, which is my preference and a huge reason I love this show, and this episode just doesn't have any of that. It also suffers from being an early episode where the writers haven't quite gotten the dynamics of the characters and the relationships down yet. The plot revolves around Sarah trying to get this interview with this psychic kid, who it then turns out was kidnapped and is being forced to perform around the world by his kidnapper using said psychic abilities. Belphegor then uses his abilities to find this vial of deadly plague, which he wants for He just kind of wants to have it, honestly, which really is his MO. The problem is he doesn't do much himself, nor does Sarah or Jax. He makes his kids show him the location of the plague, goes and picks it up, and that's pretty much it. It's just a lot of running around and talking and not much else. No crazy or outlandish schemes in this one, unfortunately. Not much to work with, leaving it at 23rd place. In 22nd place, we have episode 19, The Ultimate Sacrifice. This episode suffers from the exact opposite problem of episode 3, where there's just too much going on. It has a lot of messed up elements, which I'm usually all for, but there's just so much. I'm pretty sure the plot is Belphegor is trying to kill a government AI for the second time by just throwing a lot of messed up shit at it until it goes fuck this and dies, which is in line for his usual tactics. But also, that being said, what's with the hydrogen bomb then? He steals the hydrogen bomb, kidnaps Sarah, holds her in a knife cage thing, traps Minardier in a death trap, throws an Indiana-style Jones boulder at Jax, puts Minardier in another death trap once he escapes the first one, with the hydrogen bomb this time, and then when Jax finally shows up to rescue Sarah, he threatens her with what I'm 90% sure is a lethal injection, and just what is going on? It's all just so much and pretty disconnected. The translations may help with this one, but honestly, I think they just put too much into this episode. So even if it has some good moments, it's a little disconnected and doesn't have a very cohesive narrative or theme. But that being said, this is one of like 4 episodes that give us a hint of Belphegor's life and who he is, which is extremely hard to find in the series. Belphegor is almost entirely a mystery, so that's pretty interesting. In 21st place, we have episode 1, The Signa du Zabé, the pilot episode. I like this episode looking back, but honestly, it wasn't the strongest start. This is unfortunately pretty common with most pilot episodes of most shows, as the producers and writers haven't quite figured out what direction they're going to go. It didn't have much of an appeal and kind of felt generic at first, and also contained a lot of elements that are just disconnected from the rest of the series. Like when he finds Sarah snooping around, instead of using his magic ring to knock her out like he does in literally every single other circumstance, he ties her up, takes her to a different room, and has the person he's working with knock her out with the weaponized bee, which he has pretty convoluted. He also works with a whole gang of henchmen, which is another thing the rest of the series just doesn't have. Like, he does have henchmen, but they only occasionally pop up and will only have 1 or 2 people rather than a whole gang. Honestly, when I first saw the episode, I was a little unsure about the series because of it. However, the ending undeniably saved it. Like, we went from Belphegor being a totally unconnected and unbothered man behind the scenes, which is pretty boring, to him stealing Napoleon's jewels in front of literally everyone, putting it on a statue that's 50 feet up in the air, and then making an escape via helicopter. And then it ends with him monologuing to a bee about how his creepy little music box is the only thing that can bring him joy, and that he's the puppet master of Paris and playing everyone for fools. Like, what an introduction. They should have started with that. In 20th place, we have episode 10, La Preuve par Van Get. I'm pretty sure once the translation comes out, this is going to be much higher on the list. It has a lot of good elements and a lot of what makes the series great, even if it falls flat without those translations. Even then, a lot of character and personality is shown. Belphegor is incredibly prideful and protective of his image, which means he's at his most unhinged. He's also quite the pyromaniac as well, burning down a building and lighting several other things on fire, which is incredibly fun. Sarah is also a complete and absolute menace, tackling both a group of random children and this old guy just because they're dressed as Belphegor. Also, Belphegor has fanboys? Like, he has groupies who just go around the sewers dressed as him to do things. Honestly, I'm not sure what they do, but considering Belphegor lets them keep the movie reels that he spent the entire episode tracking down and destroying, I think he approves, which is kind of amazing. I'm also pretty sure this episode is going to be even funnier when the translations do come out, but for now, it's at 20th place. Moving on to episode 11, Un Nouveau Marche. This is a really fun episode, even if it doesn't have much intensity to it. It's also one of the few times where Belphegor is actually pretty nice to the person he's teaming up with. Now, keep in mind this is Belphegor nice, so like, keep your expectations low. But still, it's kind of neat to see him collab with a person he's not going to screw over and to see him care about someone else. It's also incredibly fun to see Jax being just such a dumbass. Like, even without translations, you can just see this man is being incredibly stupid, and it's just so entertaining. This man is so stupid and it's so fun to watch. This may be pretty low on the list, but this episode is absolutely worth a watch, and we're only getting better from here. In 18th place, we have episode 21, L'Oeil du Dragon. I don't fully know what's going on in this episode, but it's still a really fun watch. I'm pretty sure it's meant to take place during Lunar New Year, and while I can't 100% confirm that, I'm 90% sure that's what they're trying to portray. This episode has a lot of good parts in it. It's a second episode where Sarah, instead of going to real therapy, tries to go the holistic/spiritual route, meditation this time. And it's also the second episode where Belphégor sabotages her pseudotherapy from behind the scenes, making her even crazier than before, this time with a kidnapping. I don't know if you've noticed, but this show is a little deranged. We also have Sarah going down a path that is both self and generally destructive. You know, always good to see. And we have Jax trying to stop that from happening. He tries. Bless his heart. He does not succeed. We also have a dragon. Just a giant fuck you dragon that's there for like 30 seconds and then it's trapped. Like I said, plot-wise, I don't know what's going on, which is why it's pretty low on the list, but it's still a really fun watch. In 17th place, we have episode 14, Opération Tonneau de Flux. This episode takes place right after episode 13, which, besides being a very surface level assessment of how math works, is also relevant for the tone we're going for. In that episode, after the cops take a crack at taking down Belphégor and it going comically poorly, it's now the army's turn this episode. And again, this also goes extremely poorly. Now, mind you, right after episode 13, which for those of you who know, you know, and for those of you who don't know, well, we're getting there. But regardless, this episode comes right after episode 13, so you should already know exactly how badly this is going to go for the army. And you would be right. Several people get knocked out, several people get betrayed, and Belphégor even does a kidnapping of like an actual kid this time and not just Sarah again. Jax also has some pretty cool moments, and I know I've been making fun of him for being dumb because God is he so dumb, but he is a very likable and useful character, and this is a great episode to show that off. Sarah is also a full-time menace, taking down 3 hired guns all on her own while getting one over on the army. And finally, to top it off, this episode ends with Belphégor harassing the army for several hours with a robotic fly for no apparent reason, which is a very fun and in-character way to end an episode of Belphégor. In 16th place, we have episode 2, Le Maître des Rêves. It's probably a little surprising to have such an early episode this late on the list, as the other first 5 episodes have been at rock bottom, but episode 2 is different. It gives us a very good taste as what is to be and expected in future episodes, and right off the bat, we get a lot of characterization for Sarah, displaying her intelligence, craftiness, and her ability to think on her feet. Same thing for Menardier. We learn very early on that despite him being admittedly a little goofy, he is genuinely competent at his job and won't fall into the trope of bumbling detective that gets very annoying very quickly. He even manages to throw Belphégor for a loop and get one over on him, which is not easy to do. The plot is that Sarah is given a necklace that brainwashes her and allows Belphégor to control her while she's asleep, and he gets her to steal things for him. Which is also another thing this series does a lot. Like, Sarah is brainwashed via jewelry on 3 separate occasions, all in very different ways. Admittedly, brainwashing and mind control are tropes I'm very partial to, so I may be biased. Belphégor also calls her his little Columbine before transitioning to a dream sequence where she is this character Columbine and Belphégor is this different character, Harlequin, which didn't mean much to me at first, but a friend pointed out that this was actually a reference to a very famous type of French play, and while the exact type of plot is different in these plays, they all revolve around a specific set of characters, the main ones being Harlequin and Columbine, who are almost always explicitly lovers, and even when not, Columbine is always a character that Harlequin at least fancies, which this tidbit of knowledge only makes Sarah and Belphegor's dynamic more insane. Interestingly enough, a fun bit of information that's also in these plays is it's tradition for most characters, especially Harlequin, to wear a mask at least for part of the play, while Columbine is an exception to this rule and is almost always never in a mask. With Belphegor always wearing a mask and us never seeing his face, it is a pretty cool reference. In 15th place, we have episode 9, La Stratégie du Cavalier. I'm not going to lie, this episode was at first a lot lower, and then the translation came out while I was writing this list, and yeah, it shot right up. Mainly because it's just that funny. The plot for this one is that Belphegor slowly, over the span of weeks, kidnaps several police officers before finishing off on kidnapping both Menardier and Sarah, and then finally revealing that he's turned them into living chess pieces, before challenging Jack to a game to get them back. Jack then uses a government military AI called the Black Box, and that's not a translation, the name actually is in English for some reason, to defeat him. Belphegor then proceeds to use this as an opportunity to steal said AI and then just plays chess with it and does literally nothing else. It's so funny and it's so peak Belphegor. There is no better summary of Belphegor's motivations than this episode. He also calls Sarah his queen several times, which is insane, especially because this is immediately after episode 8. We will get there much later on, but trust me, it made me go insane. What's even funnier is Jack's whole deal during this entire thing. Belphegor plays chess with him as an online opponent for like 15 days straight before this happens. He gets this poor boy addicted to playing chess, and that's not an exaggeration. Jax has been skipping sleep and several days of work just to play chess with him as an online opponent, and he doesn't win once. He never wins a single time. I really hope when smartphones come out in that universe, Jax never learns how to properly use one. He would not survive Candy Crush. In 14th place, we have episode 18, Arrêt sur Image. Even without the translations, it's crystal clear what this episode is about. That being said, it's a little convoluted, so bear with me a moment. Okay, so there's this huge art display slash cultural display in Paris, and several world leaders come over because of it. The security for the display and what is also part of the display, I'm pretty sure, are these impenetrable glass barriers that can only be opened via eye scan from all these world leaders. Belphegor spends the entire episode tracking down said leaders and getting pictures of their eyes, and then, bear with me, he stops time with some sort of machine he just has. Sarah sneaks through into the zone where time doesn't remain frozen before the machine can activate, and so she remains unfrozen. She tries to fight Belphegor. Belphegor tries to kill her, and trust me, when I mean he tries to kill her, he tries to kill her. At this point in the series, his I'm just messing with you slash I'm curious about what will happen death traps are very distinct from his no, I want you in the ground death traps, and this one is the latter. So Sarah nearly dies, but she escapes while Belphegor tries to steal the art. She then proceeds to smash the time machine to bits, and while time is slowly coming back and slowly starting to reactivate, Belphegor realizes he doesn't have enough time to steal the art, so instead he scans his own eye into the security mechanism, pretty much locking all the art in location forever. Very much a if I can't have it, no one can. And then Sarah gets blown up a bit because this poor woman hasn't suffered enough. All in all, pretty good episode with good storytelling, even if you don't know the language. In 13th place, we have episode 22, La Dernière Épreuve. This is probably going to be my most controversial placement on this list. You either love this episode or hate it. I love it, but I totally get why people hate it. I have several times referred to this episode as the quote, saw trap episode. So just keep that in mind for what you're getting into. I don't know what's going on, but Belphegor kidnaps Sarah and just keeps psychologically and physically torturing her for no apparent reason. But also, this entire thing is tied to a different woman who is in a mental hospital, dressed as Belphegor's creepy music box doll, including the mask, and her awareness slash consciousness seems to be tied to present Sarah's torture. And she may or may not be Sarah from the future, and Belphegor may or may not have, in a different alternate timeline, caused her insanity by doing this whole torture thing and is doing it again, but future Sarah is saving present Sarah by talking to Menardier and Jax and giving them information they need to rescue current Sarah before it's too late, which also ends up curing future Sarah by preventing the insanity in the first place. Listen, I may be way off here, but I think that's what's going on, and I need a translation of this episode. Like, this episode has dug its claws into me and won't let go. There's also some great scenes overall. A common criticism you'll see is people saying, I thought Sarah and Belphegor's relationship was cute and this episode ruined it. And I'm sorry if you thought that, you have not been paying attention, like any attention whatsoever. Their relationship is inherently fucked from the start, and that's what I'm here for, honestly. So yeah, this episode was certainly in line with that, even if it had me going, what the actual fuck, the entire time, because yeah, what the actual fuck. Seriously, this episode needs a translation. I need to know what is going on. I also need to know if he gave her a romantic nickname while kidnapping her, because that's something he does a lot, and oh my god, that'd be so fucked up. In 12th place, we have episode 20, Le Sixième Licorne. This episode is one that will certainly benefit from a translation and probably would be higher if it had one, but even without it, it's really good. I don't know the story beyond Belphegor just running around causing different types of sensory hallucinations, and I don't know why. The reason this episode is so high up is because there's so many good scenes. Belphegor is being a menace as always, and we end up with some it's so fucked it's funny type of scenes. And Sarah has some really beautiful dream sequences slash psychic visions. Also, for the record, it's never explained or mentioned, but Sarah 100% has psychic abilities, and this episode displays them a lot. She then uses these visions to be very proactive in trying to take Belphegor down, first chasing him on a roof, and then later she tracks him down in the sewer system with a gun that I'm pretty sure she did not have permission to take. This doesn't work, but she does legitimately shoot at him, which is amazing. Like, you go, girl. Also, see what I mean when I say the relationship was never functional? This is one of the more tame things that has happened. They are so messed up, and I'm just sitting in the back with popcorn. In 11th place, we have episode 25, Le Secret de la Tour Eiffel. This is the second to last episode, and for context, if you don't know or haven't noticed, there's a notable shift at the midpoint of the series. It starts off as standard for these types of kid shows and then gets a lot more messed up, which, as established, is something I like. This episode is framed by several pretty intense episodes, which is why it's so hilarious that the show decided to take a break from the torture, attempted murder, kidnapping, brainwashing, and general menace behavior to drop you off into what is pretty much a miraculous ladybug episode. I'm not joking about that. Belphegor has this sound frequency that can control birds, and he uses it to take the Eiffel Tower hostage. That's it. That's pretty much it. I mean, he's looking for something up there, and there's this weird cult, but it's not very relevant, and the cult isn't evil. They're just weird. They also break into Sarah's room while she's asleep to wake her up and show her their secrets, and I'm not sure why they couldn't have waited till daytime or, like, just knocked on her door if it was that urgent, but shockingly, that's not that relevant. This episode is about Belphegor using birds to take the Eiffel Tower hostage, and also using them to harass several people and the military, while the military is trying and failing to stop him because, like, what are you even supposed to do in that situation? It's just really funny. Also, look at Belphegor crawling around right now. Like, look at the screen. This man is so. He is a creature, let me tell you that. Now to the top 10. Episode 7, Prince. It was pretty difficult to figure a lot of these out, and I'm still not 100% sure on the placement of this one. Sometimes I think I placed it too high, other times I think I placed it too low. Regardless, this episode is great. There's a lot of emphasis on the side character of the episode, a guy who is literally just called the Prince, who is also the only person that can match both Belphegor and Sarah's crazy. Sarah also has a bit of a crush on him, which is hilarious, especially because this crush does not wane even when he starts to do grand theft and eco-terrorism. Canonically, she just has the worst taste in men, and I'm not even referring to Belphegor here. She has had several minor love interests, all of which are just bad ideas. This episode establishes that pattern, but it does not wane. Prince also teams up with Belphegor, and again, this is one of the very few people who he doesn't screw over. The episode also establishes a minor overarching plot. This is the episode where our characters learn Belphegor lives in the sewers or the catacombs, and that information is acted upon in later episodes, which isn't standard for kids' shows set up like this, especially not in the late 1990s or early 2000s. I'm not saying it's completely unique, of course, but it is a pleasant surprise to see the episodes have some overlap, even if minor. It's generally a really good episode plot-wise, character-wise, and with the translations is very funny. In ninth place, we have episode 26, La Cité Infinie. This is the last episode of the series, and honestly, I didn't have many expectations, but I was pleasantly surprised. Usually in shows like this with disconnected episodes, there's not really a conclusion of any type, and I can't say there was here, though the translations may reveal something later, but it did feel like a final episode at least a little bit. Belphegor's scheme nearly takes down all of Paris this time, and the stakes are way higher than previously because, again, the entire city is on the line. The premise is that Belphegor finds this magic MacGuffin that allows him to raise a fairy tale esque city that's underground to the surface. Now, this, of course, violently displaces everything that's already there, but Belphegor doesn't care. He also knocks Sarah out and kidnaps her, taking her to the top of a tower where neither of them will be affected by the displacement to watch everything unfold in safety. This has a lot of fairy tale homages and elements to it, which I love. Really, the only problem and the reason it's not higher is that the dialogue does seem to have a lot of impact in this episode, which is perfectly fine, of course. But without translations, I'm missing that element entirely, and a lot of the intense moments don't have the same impact as they probably would have had I known French. It may be raised later, but for now, La Cité Infinie is comfortably at number 9. In eighth place, we have episode 23, La Vengeance de l'Étoile Bleue. It is really, really fun to see Belphegor with messed with people who have personally pissed him off. Like, him just existing is one thing, but when this man is on a warpath, heaven help you. This is one of those episodes, and this one is especially fun because the guy absolutely deserves it. So it's just a joy to watch. This time, the side character is a veteran, though I'm not sure which war he's from. It could very well be World War II, at least age wise. This potential World War II veteran also does not waste a single second putting the moves on Sarah, which is a little creepy, I won't lie, but hilariously enough, Sarah actually goes for it. Like I said, worst taste in men. That's not why he deserves Belphegor's wrath, though. He deserves Belphegor's wrath because he tries to kill Jax, held Sarah at knife point and threatened her, and also because he was responsible for a plane crash that killed a man Belphegor knew and was close to pre-becoming Belphegor. So yes, him getting what was coming to him was deserved, and what was coming to him was a PTSD gun that triggers PTSD flashbacks in whoever it was shot at, which led to, frankly, several incredibly hilarious moments, but also it's the only thing that gives us any hint about Belphegor's past. The PTSD gun affects pretty much everyone, and at some point, Sarah pointed it at Belphegor, but he was unfazed. I thought he was either immune or adjusted the gun to not affect him, but later, at the end of the episode when he's alone, we see him use the gun on himself to try to reverse his trauma, and we get to see the last time he says goodbye to the man who died in the plane crash, and then we proceed to see him get angry over the fact that it didn't work. So not only was he absolutely affected by the gun, but he was able to remain in control through either being so emotionless or so desensitized that a PTSD flashback did not affect his ability to function. Also, what a wild way to deal with trauma. If it were anyone else, I'd recommend therapy, but this man would probably end up torturing his therapists, so probably best he didn't try that. In seventh place, we have episode 6, Un metro a disparo. I'm going to be honest, this episode is so high because of personal bias. When I first got into the show, only episodes 1 through 5 were translated. I watched the rest of the series in French, and then 2 days later, this translation came out, and I was so happy. It also helps that this episode is incredibly funny. This episode is what made me realize, holy shit, Belphegor is hilarious. And I mean both the character and the show. The show is inherently funny, but Belphegor speaks like he was raised on Tumblr. This man is a riot. This is also where his character trait of pride is introduced, specifically his protectiveness over his image and, quote, his territory. He straight up almost kills a guy about it. This episode is really funny and zany, and I like the side character of Tenzin despite him only being on screen for like 30 seconds total, even if I still would like to know how Sarah knows rebels from Tibet. It's high because of bias, but it's still good, and it deserves its spot in 7th place. In 6th place, we have episode 16, Rendezvous à Sibérie Bizarre. Another one of those episodes that make you go, what the fuck, but like, in the best way. It starts off very strong, with only a few minutes in, someone double-crossing Belphegor in a deal. Now, this comes very quickly after episode 13, so we know exactly how Belphegor handles people who have personally wronged him. So really, the only thing to do here is just sit back and laugh and go, oh, you poor son of a bitch. And yes, I know this is the second time I've brought up episode 13. We will get there. But it is very important to establish Belphegor's personality. But let's just say this guy does a lot of messed up stuff without any motivation other than him being bored. So imagine what he does when someone gives him a proper reason to fuck them up. Step 1. Have the person who wronged you have access to a faulty cloning machine that will clone any living thing with just some hair, but the clone isn't alive and the person who is being cloned dies. Step 2. Break into their house and set up several traps involving creepy mannequins, giving them a fear of mannequins. Step 3. While breaking into their house, leave some hair at the scene of the crime. Step 4. Have them put the hair in the faulty cloning machine because they think it's yours. Step 5. While the clone is being made, which takes hours, chase him while using creepy mannequins as roadblocks and traps, worsening his fear of mannequins. Step 6, end up chasing him into an abandoned, creepy building that is just filled with mirrors, and use smoke and mirror tricks to harass him for the last minutes of his life until the clone is finally finished being made and he falls dead. Step 7, to escape from the cops, knock Sarah out in the back of a truck and drive said truck into a river, forcing the police to jump in after her to save her life and letting you get away. That probably wasn't what you expected, but it's what happened. Yeah, this is certainly a show. Side note, while I was editing, I remembered this last scene, and it's probably a long shot, but like, to the 3 people in existence who have actually seen this show, do we have any idea whose hair that is? Now we're going into the top 5. All of these episodes are extremely iconic and very good, so I hope you're not disappointed in their placement. Starting off in 5th place, we have episode 15, Le Hetzel à Oubli. I'm not gonna lie, this episode is a bit trippy. Certain elements are hard to follow without translations, but the main plot is pretty clear, and oh boy, is it a doozy. I'm bad with explaining time travel, so this section may be a bit rough, but it is a very good episode. And yes, I did say time travel. There's this machine that causes it. It needs a special stone and a special book. I don't know the details, and that's not the interesting part of the story. What's interesting is that Sarah has psychic visions of chasing Belphegor in a museum, taking him out of commission, and then almost getting his mask off before getting distracted by something horrible, but the vision ends before she saw what that was. She then decides to see a hypnotist to figure this out, where eventually the visions clear up and she sees an alternate version of herself. Belphegor finds out about these sessions and at some point threatens the hypnotist into putting subliminal messages into Sarah's head while he watches these hypnotist appointments from behind one-way glass. This leads Sarah to finding the time travel machine and ending up in the future, where she runs to the museum she saw herself in, interrupting her past self before she can lift the mask. AKA Belphegor uses time travel to mess with Sarah's visions, using future Sarah to stop past Sarah from finding out his identity, which is just a really cool concept, really well done, and a perfect way to start off the top 5. In 4th place, we have episode 17, Loyer. This is the second out of 3 episodes with mind-controlling jewelry, though this time, instead of Belphegor being fully in control and just puppeting around Sarah's body, instead this ring sends her visions that she's compelled to act on. But Sarah is very much conscious and still Sarah, so we get to see her deranged personality throughout the episode. Just this time, her motivations are in aiding Belphegor rather than stopping him, which is wildly entertaining. We also get to see how clever she is and how physically strong she is, and it ends with Belphegor almost luring her to his lair, which only one character has ever been in before. That would have been a big deal. This episode is written so compelling that while you know this isn't really Sarah and her goals aren't good, you kind of want to see her and Belphegor succeed anyway, just to see what's going to happen. It also has a lot of unhinged moments shoved in one episode, along with a lot of uniquely suggestive moments between her and Belphegor. All of these elements combined are what land it so high on the list. Starting the top 3, we have in 3rd place, episode 13, Le Masque de Glace. Yes, we're finally at episode 13. I know I've been bringing it up, but there's a reason for it. This episode is both very intense and very important for Belphegor's characterization, especially before the translations came out. Belphegor is very protective and prideful of his image. You can insult or yell at him and he doesn't particularly care, but if you try to use his image in a story or frame him for something he didn't do, all bets are off. This man will go on the goddamn warpath and you better pray you are nowhere close to being in his way. How did we learn this? Well, Menardier and the police decide to be proactive in taking Belphegor down, which isn't a terrible idea. Then they decide the best way to do this is to have one of them pretend to be him on camera and in the news and lure him out that way. This is a terrible idea. How does Belphegor react? Well, he decides to make this one simple. First off, have one of his henchmen break into an office in the police station, find a file on Menardier that reveals he has an extreme trauma from childhood about rats. Second off,
While planning, have Jacques break in, and instead of doing something you usually do, like either kidnapping him and throwing him in a room for like a day, or just knocking him out, have the same henchman chase him down and drown him in concrete because the ball of revenge is rolling, baby, and will not be stopped. I cannot underestimate how intense this scene was for the first time watching. I was straight convinced Jacques actually died for several minutes. Step 3. Lure Menardier away, harass him with a fake version of you that leads him into a trap, and then have that trap fall into a pit that's just full of rats, sending him into a PTSD flashback. Step 4. Throw Sarah into the same pit, now making Menardier have to deal with protecting her as well as his ongoing flashback. Step 5. Lead the rest of the police to where they can find and rescue the two, while also establishing, hey, this was very much just a warning, so I highly suggest you never do that again. Step 6. Get a public apology from Nardier and go back to normal. Another reason this episode is so great is because not only does it solidify his pride, but also solidifies the shift in tone. The tone was already changing to be a little more intense than expected before this episode, but this really solidified the difference in the shift. In second place, we have episode 8, La Folie au Rideau Noir. I know, this is probably also going to be a controversial placement because this is like the Belphegor episode. If you have seen a single Belphegor edit, then there's a solid 90% chance you're familiar with this episode. It has the most iconic scene in the entire series. You know those types of scenes that just make you go, I feel like them straight raw dogging it on camera would be less erotic than what I just watched? It's one of those scenes. God, I really hope no kids are watching this. I have been swearing a lot. Anyway, this is kind of the pinnacle episode that everyone knows about off the top of their head in the fandom, so honestly, I feel like I have to justify it not being in first place. First off, a lot of the edits on the episode and the cuts are pretty choppy, which is funny but a little distracting. The pacing slows down at some points, and they have a lot of scenes that are just a little boring to watch, and the script is also slightly incoherent. And yes, I know it's a rough fan translation, of course it's going to be awkward at times, but that's not what I mean. Even compared to other episodes, the dialogue is awkward and choppy, and the characters say things that are just unrelated to what's going on or are just not relevant. It also isn't one of the funnier episodes, despite it having several good moments. Which, yes, all of this is a bit nitpicky, but we're at the top too. It's so close the nitpicks matter. That being said, this episode is amazing. The plot is that Belphegor uses this collection of paintings of a folly, which is a small decorative building often found in gardens or woods, to teleport between museums. Basically, they're portals. Which is not only really cool, but apparently this episode is just chock full of fascinating art references. First off, the folly in the painting, it's a real folly called Belvedere du Petit Trianon, which is a garden in Versace made for Marie Antoinette. One of the side characters in this episode is this character named Magreen, which is a reference to the famous Dutch art forger Han van Magreen, who is famous for trading a Nazi general a forged painting in exchange for 137 stolen paintings, which he was able to save by hiding them in a salt mine. The artist of the folly paintings were claimed to be Jacques Drogen, who was a real-life Canadian director who is famous for an animation where a character steps into a painting. All of these facts are thanks to the translator, Artur Osipov, by the way. Not even that, though. The side characters in this episode, Patrick Rock, is really funny. He's the only guy who realizes that maybe making a deal with Belphegor was a bad idea at the start. Not that it does him any good, but credit for self-awareness. Even if he does end up drugged, running from the cops through a museum in clothes that are not his with a receipt taped to his chest that declares him as a, quote, service rendered. There are also a lot of really, really intense moments between Sarah and Belphegor, and a lot of scenes with Menardier being absolutely adorable. Really, all in all, strong episode, strong characters and relationship moments, fascinating, entertaining, and a unique story that has many beautiful art references, and really only a handful of minor nitpicks that landed in second place. But for episode number 1, and in my opinion, the best Belphegor episode we have, episode 24, The Alliance. Short and sweet, the title that gets straight to the point in both French and English. The Alliance, The Alliance. This is the episode where the hero and villain team up, which, considering all the shit that Belphegor gets up to, is wild. Like, how bad do things have to be to get to that point? Well, bad, but we're getting there. In fact, this episode has a lot of generally beloved tropes. Brainwashing, hero turn evil, villain hero team up, having a character's powers stripped away. It has all of it. And it starts off very strong right off the bat, with Belphegor trying to get something from a lab. We don't know what it is, but it clearly has some type of power. To prevent this from happening, the scientist puts it under an industrial grade trash compactor, figuring it's better off destroyed than in Belphegor's hands, which is not a particularly inaccurate assessment. Belphegor reaches into the trash compactor and his ring holds it apart. However, the ring gets stuck, so Belphegor has to flee without it. So, in a matter of 30 seconds, we have not only established that Belphegor's magical ring can literally withstand a trash compactor, holy shit, but also, holy shit, Belphegor lost his magic ring. He is powerless without it. So the stakes are high, and we don't slow down at all. Immediately, Sarah and Jax are up and rushing to this lab that now has Belphegor's ring, and everyone is freaking out while also trying to experiment on said ring. Sarah and Jax take a motorcycle there, which means Sarah gets this awesome biker's outfit. Side note, should I do another list ranking all her outfits? I feel like I should. That would be fun. Anyway, back to the story. The characters are at the lab barely long enough for the scientists to explain, hey, we have no goddamn idea what this ring is made of or how it works. It's not reacting like any known material on Earth, before Belphegor is breaking into the lab a second time to get his ring back. In the commotion, Sarah runs off with the ring and locks herself in a room. And before Belphegor can break down the door, the police are giving chase, taking advantage of the fact that he doesn't have his magical ring as a chance to take him down. However, it's revealed that even without his ring, Belphegor is a freaking badass. Like, he's probably more dangerous without his ring, actually, when he's cornered, and it's so cool to see. Meanwhile, Sarah puts the ring on and is immediately overwhelmed with power taking hold of her and turning her not exactly evil, more like an amoral, chaotic being of destruction than anything, which, yeah, is probably worse, actually. So now a powerless Belphegor and our remaining protagonists need to team up to stop Sarah from destroying all of Paris. Though it doesn't seem like Belphegor is influenced by the ring the same way, if at all, so I'm pretty sure the show is implying that it only affects Sarah like this because of her psychic powers. Which, again, wild. There's a lot of wildness in this episode, and honestly, it's pretty funny without the translations. Though there's also a lot of moments where it's very clear that the dialogue is going to be utterly hilarious when they are translated. This is also the only episode where we learn anything about the backstory of the ring itself, learning that it actually comes from space. So combining the character and relationship moments, all the beloved tropes, the lore relevance, the story, the humor, and the fact that it will only benefit from future translations, episode 24, The Alliance, is, in my opinion, the best Belphegor episode this is. Wow, I did not expect this video to be this long. It's over 40 minutes. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you all give this funky little show a try, and if not, I at least hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day regardless.